We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's almost fantasy season. I feel like I get thrown into more leagues every year, even if now I'm in my wife's family league. Now I'm part of the family. Give me $50 is basically what it feels like for getting into that league. But she's won it twice. I stand a chance. I just now started coming up with who I want, so that's the amount of prep. I'm starting to finally prep. I have drafts on Sunday.
Good for you. I do not play fantasy football. I'm happy everybody enjoys it. I think I would get too invested, so I can't do it. But I'm happy for everyone when their team does well. Their players do well in fantasy football. And I feel like I should be playing, but I don't. So good luck to Mike and his whole entire roster. Hope you win it all. With the Cincinnati Bengals, I feel like we have a few headlines we can get to right now. Training camp is in the books. Joe Burrow, first full training camp is over with. Good for him. He only missed 1 day of camp. It was the early rule Zach Taylor had set. He's not going to throw more than 2 days in a row, and they had a gap in between. Joe Burrow had a really light day that week. That was late July. So good for Joe Burrow. We're moving on to the headlines that we have right now because it's an off day for the Cincinnati Bengals. I heard you knock on wood. Did you knock on wood?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Because I debated on even bringing that up.
Hey, come on.
Hey,
He can fall down at home. We're not
I
out
have
of this.
I have a PTSD. As soon as I saw that headline, I said, you know what? Training camp technically over, but we're not there yet for regular season. So can we just kind of wait on saying we've officially made it? Be extra careful, Joe. Miles Murphy, though, speaking of Cincinnati Bengals and kind of their day off right now, a positive update. There were reports NFL Network had it. Miles Murphy's brother had it. Sounds like a sprain for him. And I don't want to say it's MCL, but it is a sprain to his knee right now. MCL. Yeah. So he's expected to be out for a few weeks. Could be back for the opener. Could be back for week 2 for Kansas City. And I think all of that is very optimistic news when he did go down during training camp yesterday. So awesome to hear from Miles Murphy because this team definitely needs him out there. And hopefully he's back out there sooner than later. Ja'Marr Chase making the headlines right now. I feel like this is a daily thing for me personally. We talked about him last week. I really haven't changed how I feel about this happening. Of course, it's going to happen. I truly feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are going to extend Ja'Marr Chase. They're not going to trade him. They're going to give him a lot of money. He's probably going to be the highest paid wide receiver. But for me personally, I think it gets done next offseason. If it gets done now, awesome. But the Bengals don't have to do it right now. And if they do it, great. Win-win for both sides. How are you feeling about all this?
All right. I think we just start with MCL. I assume it's a grade 1 based off what they've talked about, because that would be a 1 to 3 week injury, according to this orthopedic blog I found. And grade 2 is 4 to 6 weeks, and then grade 3 is 4 to 6 weeks. Although surgery is sometimes required for a grade 3. I think that would be like a partial tear type of situation, although all sprains are like tiny tears. But this would be like it's actually fully tearing a little bit. I assume it's a grade 1, so 1 to 3 weeks. Based off of what Miles Murphy's brother said, Burrow had at the latest. So what's that? That's 3-4 weeks away.
Yeah.
I can't think it'd take much longer. Would I hope? I've never dealt with a knee sprain of any kind, and I don't know that much about them. I know you can 1 to 3 weeks is heal time. It didn't say if you would be fully recovered, or is that just your time that you're pretty much good to go back? I don't want anything that could linger throughout the year, where the healthiest every NFL player is week 1, week 2. Yeah. If you're coming into that banged up, you usually don't get healthier throughout a season. Joe Burrow kind of did with the calf, but then obviously got hurt again. So I would just hope, because I think he's poised for a good year. I think preseason went all right for him and Osai. They both looked solid. I would think it's nice to miss the serious knee injury because that sets you back real far. Mm-hmm. But you wish none of this happened. am optimistic enough, though, that it shouldn't have too much of an impact throughout the season. I don't think of too many. Like, I think of soft tissue injuries lasting a while. Think of like muscles, like a strained calf, turf toe, which has a ligament, but MCL ligament. It's at the end of the name. So hopefully it doesn't last. I just think hopefully he gets 100% healthy and then comes back, because I'm not looking forward to like comes back and he's at 70% and then he's not producing at the same level he could. And then that lasts throughout the year rather than taking the extra week, rest up, come back at 100%.
Yeah. Hopefully he is back ready to roll before regular season, or like you said, just get him back 100% before you rush him out there. Obviously, that position group does need some depth pieces, so we'll see what that looks like for the team if they end up bringing a couple more guys in. Roster cut down day is really going to get slim over the next week, so we'll see what that looks like for the Cincinnati Bengals. But you always think you could always get worse news. So good for Myles Murphy. Can't wait till he's back out there. Hope he has an incredible year two for him. And I do think he's going to get those opportunities on this defense, and he should be getting those opportunities. But we move on to Ja'Marr Chase, because this is never going to end. We're going to talk about this until he signs as an extension. With training camp being over, I don't really know how much changes if Ja'Marr Chase is back at practice when they do get back out there next week, or if it is one of those things where he is getting those reps behind the scenes. I know there were reports that he was working out with the quarterback coach in the bubble, so we really don't know what happened there. Probably did get a couple more reps in after practice, after the media's gone. But everybody's throwing out this number that Ja'Marr Chase wants to get, and obviously it's going to be more than Justin Jefferson. None of that is surprising to me. The next guy always wants to be the highest paid. Ja'Marr Chase and Justin Jefferson, for me, are the two top wide receivers. We'll see how it works out in 2024. But again, my mindset hasn't changed. It's awesome if the Bengals get it done. It's awesome for Ja'Marr and awesome for the Bengals if they get it done this offseason. But if they don't, for me, it'll get done next offseason. So that's where I feel. I don't know if it will change, and I'd be surprised if it was done now.
Yeah, the whole thing getting dragged out just makes me think more. It's like, man, that is frustrating that you didn't pay T. Higgins 2 years ago, because if you were ahead on him, you could wait on Chase, and who cares? Because by the time you extend Chase, which you're always going to do, you still have this year, 5th-year option, and the franchise tag you could use on him. And honestly, he could get a double tag. So that could be 4 years in a row of him being a Bengal against his will, really, which kind of stinks for the players. But by then, T. Higgins' extension would have ran out. And then, because the thing is, you don't pay Bates because you're going to pay T, but then you don't pay T anyway.
You can't go back.
And then I know you said that, but like, I go back and I'm like, well, who are you paying?
No, that's true.
What are we studying? So you draft great players and then you just don't extend them. Mm-hmm. For what reason? Is it so that you can always, put together contracts for mid-level type extensions or mid-level type free agents to come in? Because really, you need game changers. And you keep drafting them, but not extending them. And that gets frustrating. And you talk to Ja'Marr Chase, it's like, just if he's holding in, I assume he's willing to sign a deal, whatever he wants. You've already painted yourself into the corner if you're the Bengals. You didn't pay T. Higgins. You've paid Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow will not be happy if both those players walk. I don't think he's going to be that happy that Higgins walks, but you just kind of have to deal with that. And you can tell him, like, well, we have to save money to pay other things. But pay something. You've paid Burrow. I don't know. That's the frustrating part to me. Maybe, galaxy brain thought here. Maybe they are waiting for that Chiefs Thursday night opener to just release the information once again that Ja'Marr Chase is the highest paid wide receiver in the league, just like they did last year with Joe Burrow. Maybe they're just trying to troll the Chiefs again. That's where I'm currently living. I'm a little bit frustrated. Because he is holding in, and I think this may have an effect. I hope it doesn't, but I think you could come in a little rusty. Maybe he drops a couple extra passes to start the year. Just something that's like, if he was in full game shape, ready to go, might not happen. But because he's holding in, and maybe I think he's in shape. I don't think he's out of shape or anything. But is he rusty? You talk about rust all the time with these guys coming off injuries or had to take a lot of time off from the game. That could happen just because he hasn't practiced. He hasn't practiced all year. The reason they practiced for a reason. We were excited Joe Burrow practiced all year for all offseason for a reason. And then you don't have your best receiver practicing because he wants an extension, which honestly, if they did extend him now, it would be better. You're going to pay higher money no matter what you think. No matter if you think this is a ridiculous price now, it's not going to look ridiculous in especially 2 years, probably not even next year. I assume whatever you give him, CeeDee Lamb's going to get, and then it just becomes a whole thing of like, okay, all wide receivers make $38 million a year or something now. And I saw the numbers for what he's asking for, and yes, on the surface, that sounds crazy. And then when you do the math with what he's currently making plus his 5th-year extension, it comes out to barely over Justin Jefferson's total money over like total per year numbers. It's just when you get the extension, it gets reported that 4 years, 160, and you think 40 million per year, but then that gets tampered down because you're going to backload it first of all, because you're probably going to extend him again, or there's going to be ways out of it at the end of it. But also you roll in that 5th-year option money, his rookie contract money right now, and then you kind of mix that up where instead of making $3 million this year, he'll make $10 million, and it'll just loosen those cap hits towards, and not just cap hits, but money towards the later parts of the contract. It just makes a lot of sense if you want to extend him now. If the hold-in works and they actually do extend Chase now, I mean, like, great, because that's better. But I am just at the point where I'm a little bit frustrated of like, you're drafting outside of Jabbar, but like you're drafting elite talent, high-end talent at the very least, and then you're letting them go, and you're not paying them what they want. It's just pay him. At this point, I'm just frustrated enough that it's like just pay him whatever he wants. He's holding in. It's not like he's going to keep saying no to the contracts. I feel like he's going to say yes to a contract if he's willing to skip practice for it. It's not like he's going like, I'm not dealing with contracts right now and going out and practicing and playing games. So unless there's no option here where it's just I'm not going to play. Are you going to accept the deal? No, I want to see what CD gets. It's like, well, that would just be frustrating, but I feel like that would have come out. I don't know. Maybe not.
They're going to pay him. They're going to pay him.
I agree.
They're going to pay him. They're not going to pay T. Higgins probably. We pretty much know that's going to happen. They didn't pay Jesse Bates, but moving on to the current players, I agree with you. They have money to spend on their superstars. Jamar Chase, a friend of the show over on X, and I can't think of who tweeted it out earlier. You think of Jamar Chase as the Joe Burrow as your wide receiver, like that talented of a player, that player of your offense. He is a game changer. I truly feel like, not to look too far back, they wouldn't have went to the Super Bowl if they would have drafted Panay. And no offense to him, he is going to probably be a Hall of Famer offensive lineman, and he's working out just fine for the Lions. Jamar Chase is it. He is that superstar of a wide receiver. I would put him as a top 2, and some people would say he's number 1 in the NFL. He's young. He's talented. He has that connection with Joe Burrow. It will happen. I just don't know if it's going to happen this offseason. And we don't know what those discussions are behind the scenes. I do feel like it's a pretty simple contract. If you're like, okay, it's going to be a little more than what Justin Jefferson made, great, awesome. That deal is going to look great 2 years from now when his contract is up, including the 5th-year option. So we'll see what that looks like. But for me personally, I think Jamar Chase is going to be back out there. You have 2 more years under contract. They're not getting the reps in training camp. I do think it's worth noting. And kind of what does that look like in week 1 versus the Patriots? You obviously have Kansas City week 2, and all of that is extremely important to avoid a slow start, something that they have a problem with over the last few years. I don't know. I guess in my brain, I'm thinking like the front office, and the front office, I just don't see them in a hurry to get it done right now. And I think Jamar Chase will play regular season.
Yeah. I mean, I think he does too. I think all of that's true. But I think at this point, it's a little frustrating that it's like he's holding in. There's a reason.
Yeah.
You're going to pay him no matter what. I know he doesn't have leverage. This is his leverage, that I will hold out and I will skip games. I don't believe he'll skip games, although if you are willing to listen to Chad Johnson, not if they don't get the deal done, he will, but he thinks they'll get the deal done. And I don't think they will. I don't know. So, like, I hope that part's not right, that he'll skip games. Just frustrating. I hope he's ready to play a full allotment of snaps week 1 too, because just beat the Patriots week one. Like, you are the better team, one of the highest favorites, one of the highest favorites in the league that week, maybe the highest.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, that's frustrating. That's a little bit like, ooh.
Yep.
But just, I know they struggle early in seasons. I hope that's not going to be a reason that happens. I just hope that it's T. Higgins, Jamar Chase out there, and then they can run through the gamut of third receivers and figure that out. Like, will that be Yosifas? Will that be Irwin? Will that be Burton? Will Charlie Jones mix in? Will it just be Gesicki and Drew Samples lined up in line as the real tight end? I don't know. And maybe Eric All gets some run in the real tight end spot. But it's just interesting. It's interesting in a bad way of like, what's going to happen? Because I want to think good things. I just want to think like, oh yeah, and how are they going to attack the Patriots? Are going to do all this? But at the same time, you got to wonder the entire time, like, does Jamar Chase play 60% of snaps, or does he play 80% of snaps, or does he play his normal like 99% of snaps? I don't know, because he hasn't practiced. If he practiced all off season, played in that preseason game, and whatever else, I'd feel very confident. Instead, I'm like, man, there's just like this little bit of annoyance going on. I don't think there's any chance they trade him. I don't think there's any chance he doesn't sign here. I think that's all. No, I think it's all just
crazy
dealing with this contract right now. That part's all crazy. Of like, people always want to come up with those, fan fiction ideas, but I think it's okay to be a little bit frustrated right now.
Yeah, I 100%. We'll move on to the preseason finale and kind of some of these bubble players, but just one more thing on Jamar. I know I said it. I think it's going to happen next offseason. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love for the Cincinnati Bengals, they had today off or their walkthroughs, they get ready for the last preseason game tomorrow, just to go into their front office today, all the front office members, Chase's team, all of them talking, continuing the negotiations, getting to the finish line. I want nothing more than Jamar Chase to have an extension this offseason. I just don't think it happens, and I think it's next offseason. And I hope to see Jamar. I miss Jamar Chase practicing, I know it sounds silly, but I just miss him out there and seeing Jamar make insane catches, even if it's training camp or practice. I can't wait to see him back out there. And T. Higgins is having himself a camp. So to have both of them, I'm just pumped for it. So get it done, front office. If you don't, I do feel like you're going to get it done next offseason. It's just one of those things. I'm kind of already exhausted from contract extensions because we've been having those from the Jesse Bates, from the T. Higgins, and here we are already with Jamar Chase. And, we knew it would be coming, but just get it done. Just get it done. And then we move on to regular season. Any more about Jamar Chase?
Nope. I'm done.
I'm done too. I get exhausted on that stuff. And it's an easy decision for the Bengals front office. Next, we get to talk a little preseason action. It's kind of crazy. It feels like with only 3 preseason games, it all flies by so quickly. The preseason finale at Paycor Stadium. We're going to see a few starters. I don't know what that looks like for the Bengals. Maybe more the guys on the defensive side, maybe Dax Hill and DJ Turner, or just some other guys who are in starter roles. There's something I did want to bring up, and credit to you, Mike, because I know you're on the Trenton Irwin train. The Cincinnati Bengals, I do feel like it's the wide receiver because Joe Burrow obviously said it. So I'm going to say, oh yeah, this is what they're going to do because I heard Joe Burrow say it on the Pivot podcast. And he mentioned it's going to be wide receiver 3 is going to be a wide receiver by committee. Going to be a lot of different guys when it comes to that. And that could be even, a tight end position when you think about the reception of that guy stepping up as the wide receiver 3 option in Mike Gesicki. But we'll see what that looks like. There's Trent Irwin. There's Yoshi. Charlie Jones has had a good camp despite his injury. He's back out there, which is all good news. I know Jermaine Burton, I'm pumped for him in his rookie year, but I am going to lower my expectations just a little bit when it comes to Burton and not think, oh, week 1, Jermaine is the guy. He's going to be wide receiver 3, Tyler Boyd's replacement. It's just going to be a lot of different guys, and I'm kind of leaning towards what you've mentioned plenty this offseason. And honestly, going back to last year, Trenton Irwin is probably going to get maybe Trenton Irwin and Yoshi would be the majority of the snaps as wide receiver 3 in week 1.
I feel like I would put my odds at like 50%. It'll be Irwin, 45% it'll be Yoshi that leads it, and then the 5% Burton wild card of that.
Yeah.
But just the way that they've done the preseason with Burton makes me go like, I just don't think he's ready.
Yeah.
Like, you want to run concepts, you want to change the play. And here's the thing is, like, people think, like, well, just coach him up. It's like, well, he has to be receptive of the coaching, first of all. Second, like, he's just a rookie from Alabama. Who cares if he's not ready right away? I think it's fine. This is an offense that I think you do have to have understandings. I mean, you think of some of the option stuff they've run. You think of how to – I think Burrow has some say at the line of scrimmage and hot routes, whatever else, to be able to tell people to do a little bit of something else. I think the timing is key, knowing if it's an inside or outside release, read the coverage, what route are you supposed to run if it's, off coverage, or what does this hand signal mean, etc. I think it does matter, because this is something that, like, when you play whatever sports video games, you like the talent wins out, the talent kills, because it's not like the game can't make it. He's supposed to run an in route, and then he just keeps running up the field, because you would get so frustrated and upset that like what the heck is this? This game's broken. It's like, well, that could happen. Like, he's supposed to break in and it doesn't happen. Or maybe the timing's wrong. The thing with Irwin is that Burrow and the staff trust him not only to do his job, but to be on time, in the right place, and to make plays. And I think he does what the coaching staff likes in terms of adjusting to the ball, making plays when he needs to. I think he does what Burrow likes in terms of, like, he obviously plays hard through everything. For the love of the game routes, he's running those full speed. Charlie Jones slowed up on one of those with Browning and missed out on a touchdown. He's going to be in the right place. He's going to be there at the right time. He's going to take the right releases. He's going to do everything correct. I think Yoshi is interesting as a power slot, just because that's a dynamic they haven't had. If they want to run the ball a little bit more, I think he's very important for that. I think that would be more important than Irwin, although they do use Irwin in that role. It's just I think Yoshi's got the right size for it. I'm interested. I would put Irwin as the betting favorite. I do have Yoshi pretty close behind in my mind, and then Burton off in distance. And then, I mean, I guess the real wild card would be Charlie Jones going out there, and he's just a slot receiver. But what everything I hear from Kemp is, yes, he's doing well, but also that, like, he's still not picking up the slot very well. So maybe the slot's a little bit complex. Maybe Yoshi, Princeton guy, Ivy League guy, maybe he's able to pick it up a little bit quicker. Got the big brains, the decathlon athlete. I don't know. And it's just, I know I am a little bit of the Trent Irwin guy. It's just like, I'm not him because I think Trent Irwin is some sleeping giant about to go for 1,000 yards if he ever gets the opportunity. It's just, he does everything correct. And yes, the Chiefs game that everybody brings up, it's like he had one bad game, and I get it. He was miscast in that game a little bit as a slot receiver trying to beat man coverage. Everybody else was getting doubled. He was facing man coverage against the Chiefs, and he couldn't beat it. He's an outside receiver, first of all, in my mind. And second, most NFL teams are majority what they run is zone, especially against the Bengals. They're going to run cover 2, cover 6 type of stuff. They're not running a ton of man coverage. Why? The guys on the outside. And if you could run the ball, they're definitely not going to run coverages like the Chiefs were able to run in that game. That was a little bit of a disrespect to the Bengals run game because they got down, and also the offensive line was mostly backups in that game and wasn't really that good in the first place. So where I stand on it is just like, yeah, Trent Irwin has all these good games, and I don't know why anytime he gets brought up as possibly starting, it's like, remember the Chiefs 2022 division or AFC championship game. It's like, yeah, like if Burton goes out there and he starts and he has one catch on 5 targets for 4 yards, can I go, remember the Patriots week 1? He's never going to be ready. It's like, no, what a ridiculous thing to hold. Like, one game, he's had so many good games. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why it's like such a thing to hold one game against him. Like, yeah, he's not going to beat man coverage. They go man coverage, throw in Irwin or Yoshi, or throw in Yoshi or throw in Burton because they've got the speed and the chops to beat those coverages. But if they're going to play zone coverage, it's probably going to be Irwin because he's going to be able to settle in the zones, read it out, and everything else.
Also, the Chiefs had a good defense. They still have a good defense. So
yeah, they had a heck of a defense.
It's the reason they won back to – no offense to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but it is the reason that they won 2 back-to-back. That's where I'll put it in those big games. They did
have to score a lot against Philly.
That part they did. But I feel like they made – when it mattered, you had guys like Chris Jones, and even in their secondary's tough. And
yeah, I thought the game plan was really good. Like, I think Spags – Is he credited yet as maybe the best
No,
defensive coordinator in the league? I mean, he probably should
no,
be. He's
they
so good.
don't. They don't talk about him. They really don't. I mean, maybe I don't hear him talk about him.
I do. I talk about him that way,
You
but
talk about him. You talk about him. But I agree with you. And look, I mean, credit where it's due. Their defense is legit, and
yeah.
he is talked about. I don't hear him. I don't hear about him because I hear about their offense. I hear about their quarterback.
Love Spags. I think Spags. I wish he was coaching a different team. I think he's always been one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. Hasn't always had the talent. We're talking about the guy that took down the 07 Patriots, the guy that has been the best coach in 2 out of those 3 Super Bowl wins, in my opinion. At least
Exactly.
one. At least the first 49ers game, I think he was the best coach.
I've been
And I
saying
think
that.
he probably was last year too, because they really stopped that 49ers offense, which was pretty darn good. And it's not like the Chiefs offense put up I don't remember them putting
They only had one good drive in the Super Bowl. People forget that. They had one good drive and it was the last one.
But I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm trying to do the opposite of like
No. I'm trying to give credit to their defense.
Yeah, his Spags is credit. Because then it all became like, Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. These are awesome players. Like, yes, they are, but
who put them in position to do that?
Yeah, give Spags his credit.
Yeah.
No, and also an Italian guy. I'm in on that.
The only reason I don't hear enough about him is because it's obviously you're going to talk about your superstar quarterback. And I think their defense is legit, but kind of not to get too far off topic, even though we did get off topic. You mentioned something about Yoshi, and you said, he brings something different for this offense. Explain that to people, what he brings to this offense and why it's different.
So what I know Nate Tice coined as the power slot, it's like a big slot, but being able to be a powerful blocking player from the slot. A lot of people call the slot the F, which can also be used as a term for a fullback, or can be used as a term for a second tight end and in 12 personnel. But the adjuster is another name for it. He is the guy that's going to have to dig out safeties. He's going to have to maybe block linebackers on occasion and just overall actually get in there, get dirty, and have to play that way. Yoshi's big enough to do it. And I saw him willing to do it in the first preseason game. And I thought about that right before the preseason game. I remember I was glad I was able to get that quick thought. I was like, what if Yoshi's like a power slot for them? then it happened. I was like, oh, sweet. Yeah, this is the plan. Because they haven't had a good run game. And you could blame everybody you want, whether you want to blame Mixon, whether you want to blame the offensive line, you want to blame Frank Pollock. That one happens often.
Zach
Taylor. I think your biggest issue with being an effective run game is you are only good. Like, you don't have a 12 personnel package that works in terms of blocking, because the Bengals love receiving tenants. You think of what Irv Smith was, what Hayden Hurst was, etc. And Drew Sample's there, and they finally paid him, and he is the blocking guy. Gesicki's not getting down 12 personnel and really doing too much for you. Maybe he could do a little bit of this power slot stuff, but I don't think he's going to be like a butt kicker on the line of scrimmage. So then you bring in 11 personnel, but you can do 12 personnel things, because 11 personnel, you only have six blockers. Think of that. You have the 5 offensive linemen, and let's call it Drew Sample as your tight end, or Eric All if you want to have fun that way. I still think it's Drew Sample, but Eric All did have some nice reps in the preseason game too. Had some bad ones too. But he's high effort, and I'm excited about the future with him. But right now, let's call it 5 and Drew Sample. There's only so many runs you can get to with 6 guys. So you bring in a Yoshi Voss who's able to add as a 7th blocker and be an athletic receiver. That's awesome. That is able to get to other runs. You're able to maybe seal the backside. You're able to dig out a safety, block up on a linebacker with him. And yes, he's not going to dominate linebackers, and maybe he will safeties when it comes to blocking. But that just adds an element they haven't had, because Tyler Boyd wasn't digging out safeties lately. I think he used to. I think even back in 2021, I remember that Broncos game, he did it a lot. But 2022, 2023, they didn't really ask him to do that. They'd rather RPO it or just spread it out real wide. They're such a spread team. You bring in Yoshi a little bit tighter. You ask him to block. He's able to execute those assignments, and that leads to missed assignments and be able to fool the defense in terms of they're running duo, and Yoshi is just pounding the safety play after play. blocking up on him, pancakes maybe. This is what Puka Nacua did to the Bengals a lot in their matchup. And then you hit them with play action. He's running right at the safety. And safety, like, I'm tired of this guy beating me up. Like, he's grit and grinding me. And tries to take on that block, run right by him. Just run right by him, and then you might have an over route for a big game or something along those lines. That they ran, and the reason I'm thinking of this is against the Broncos in that game in 2021, Boyd fit up on the safety a whole bunch on duo, and then they ran leak with Boyd, which is a play where you run right at the safety, and I keep running right on by, and it went for a huge gain. Can you set those up with Yoshi? Yes. Can you set those up with any of the other guys that we've talked about? Not really. Maybe Irwin. I know Irwin is willing to do whatever for the team, so I could see that. But Burton wasn't a blocker at Alabama, which is fine. Charlie Jones doesn't have the size. Who else could possibly do that? Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins is big enough. He could block, but are the Bengals going to want him getting, trying to block Kyle Duggar? Probably not.
No.
So you throw in a guy like Yoshi, see if he can do it. I think that's the element. That's an element they've missed, is having a 7-man surface, 7 blockers available to them for the run game. I think it can make the run game much more effective, and not just effective because they've been effective from 11 personnel running, but more explosive. Yes, Chase Brown adds to that, but being able to get another guy on another body and not just have him, hanging out, and maybe he's watching the pass concept. It's a 7-yard gain. He can come up and make the play. Instead, if he's blocked, he's not making the play at 7 yards. Now you got another guy blocked, and there's another chance that this could go for an explosive play. So that's what I mean by it. I think he could play the power slot role. I think that's something they haven't had since maybe 2021. And he's got the athleticism to not only play that, he's got the size to play that and the want to, but he's got the athleticism to really make good on the plays that work off of that.
Man, I love that breakdown. That is fantastic. I'm excited. I'm excited about Yoshi in year 2 and really what it looks like. But we'll do really quick hits. Preseason game number 3. I'm expecting to see Jermaine Burton in this game, get a few reps. We'll see what that looks like. Maybe it's early on in this game and really how Zach Taylor and the coaching staff handles it. But give me what you're looking for, some guys who are currently on the bubble going into this preseason game number 3, and it's important for them.
It's not the most exciting thing, but
yeah,
we talk about Cochran and some of these, like, who is the 8th, 9th, last offensive lineman, basically. Can Carmen looked fine against the Bears for the most part. And he had a good rep at the end that got passed around on social media. So, could he play his way back onto the team? Maybe. Maybe it's somebody else. Matt Lee's probably going to be out there, I assume. I'd like to see it. I don't think he gets cut. I think he's played his way on. I think the tight end is really interesting. How much Eric Allrun is there? Because it was a lot of fun. It was a very roller coaster ride with him. But he had some reps that were like, okay, I see how this becomes like good. And it could happen quickly. It's just consistency with what he's doing. There's nothing in his ability that makes him, seem like, he can't do that. I think he can do everything. But who is the last tight end? Because I think Gesicki, 100% making it. Yeah. Drew Sample, he got extended. It would cost money to cut him. Eric All, I think, got drafted too high to get cut. Mm-hmm. I think he's there. Tanner. Which one makes the team? Do they both make the team? I don't know. I find that interesting. McLaughlin keeps catching like those little dump offs and taking them 15 yards. So maybe that's how he makes the team. That's probably a special teams thing at that point. Who's better on special teams? Can either one of them be the emergency long snapper that gets blamed for losing if he ever has to go in there? The punter battle, does it exist?
No.
Are they both in or either good? I don't know.
Bring back Austin.
Yeah, we didn't get to see him. Maybe he's a game player. Maybe these guys are practice players. We need a guy that's good in the games. It hasn't looked great. So that's in my mind. I think the running backs are set. I think the wide receivers are pretty much set. Hakeem Butler hasn't done anything.
No.
I see him go out there. He's like, there's the big guy. And he's just like doing nothing. All right. Defense, I think, is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Mm-hmm. Cedric Johnson, to me, has that role of the last edge defender in. I think he's been good. I think, actually, Gunter was good week 1. Then he just said, like, I don't have the love for the game anymore. It's like, okay, well, I guess fix that job. Respect that you said that. I want to see Chris Jenkins. I don't know if he'll play, but maybe he'll play. I think he improved a lot to week 2, just keeping his base, being fundamentally strong. Then does Tufele push Carter, or do they both make it? The most exciting player on this Bengals roster bubble, Muma Jung Meta.
Meta, we love him.
Yeah, I love him. PFF hated him in that game. I thought it was up and down. I was kind of surprised at a 29. I was like, okay, well, I mean, I didn't think that he was that bad. 2 big plays off of him. Maybe they just graded those as -2s. I also think he's got a lot of blame for that reverse for not taking the best angle. Fair. The end is supposed to contain reverses. He was down the line. I don't know if he got any blame. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but I was like, well, we're throwing Young Meta under the bus. It's not 100% his
Definitely
fault. There's other guys that should have made this play. The end is supposed to be contain, quarterback keeper, reverse, but he was too far down the line trying to make the play on the ball because he thought it was just going to be backside pursuit. So that's up there. I think I don't want to see Osai just because you're down Murphy, you're down Sample. I would just rest him because he got hurt in that last preseason game last year. I just don't play him. You want to have at least one more guy for weeks 1, week 2 that's fully healthy, ready to go. So I hope I don't see him. I think corner, is it Dax Hill's job? Like they're not going to play him? Is it still a battle? It was interesting to me because I think it is Dax Hill's job. At least he has the inside track. It was interesting to me in that preseason game, they did play and pull Turner and Dax at the same time. Because if it was Dax Hill's job, I assume you go like, all right, Dax, good job, and then leave Turner out there, right? Maybe not. Or maybe Dax. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, why wouldn't you just take Dax and leave Turner out there? Does Turner go out there this week if he lost the job? I don't know. Newton, he's a roller coaster.
He is a roller coaster when you watch him.
He has some real good reps and has some real bad reps. So that'll be interesting. Battle. Wish he had a chance to play more. I just got to that point of like, man.
Who are you going to take off the field?
Fair, but they also didn't they play Dejon Anthony over him in that dime set in preseason game 1? It was like, ooh,
that would be really unfortunate because expectations for me and him going into this year, I was excited. I'm like year 2 battle.
Yeah, I was on the point of like, I don't want to be safety 3 because I don't think you'll see the field. But like, he's not even safety 3, safety 4. Like, oh, geez, what's going on? I think I ran through everybody in my mind. Do you have anybody I missed that you're looking at?
Yeah, I think you're right. When you think about the offensive linemen, for me, the Trey Hill, Jackson Carman still feel like bubble people. The penalties killed them in the preseason games. Putting Jackson Carman out late.
I think Jackson Carman was bad enough in preseason game 1 and training camp from what it sounded like that. I don't think fine performances are good enough to have him make the team. I think he has to put together some type of all-star game 3 here.
Yeah, but I think there's some positives when you think about the offensive lineman. And a lot of people are saying with Trey Hill, move him over to the guard as a depth position because he's better at guard anyways when it comes to offensive linemen. So maybe they do keep him on there as a depth piece. I do think that they carry a lot of offensive linemen going into the cuts. We don't know how many, but Jackson Kirkland, he's had some pretty good reps when it comes to preseason.
Yeah, I was trying to think of his
he's been someone who you think, oh, there you go, having some depth, maybe second or even third stringers that you can plug along because injuries are going to happen in every single position group, and to have that on your offensive line would be absolutely huge for them. On the defensive side of the ball, I thought the second string defense looked really good. It was really fun to watch in that preseason game because everybody knows how they feel about preseason. They're like, oh, we'll see some of these guys. They might not be on the roster. They may be on another team, or they may be depth for the Bengals defensive side of the ball. And I thought there were a lot of guys who stepped up in that second game of the season. Wide receiver is intriguing for me. How many they're carrying in that department when you think of the back half of the wide receiver room, what does that look like for them? Still feels like
I thought wide receiver was set.
What you think of the last person in the room. Who is it? The last person in your wide receiver.
Whoever you think is last.
You don't think they'll carry one more?
Like Lassiter or Pryor?
Yeah.
No.
In the practice squad? I don't know.
A practice squad, sure, yeah. On the active roster now, I think.
So Pryor probably more on the practice roster side.
Isn't that where he hung out all last year?
I thought he looked okay at times in
Yeah,
training camp.
I think Lassiter and Pryor always look okay, but
Yeah.
I also think that the Bengals are pretty set at wide. It's hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
make the wide receiver room when you've got 6 guys that you can't make it over.
Yeah.
So
No, it's true. There's depth there, and that's always a good thing for this team.
and then you have possibly 5 tight ends.
The
At least
tight end
4.
room is going to be crazy because I do
Yeah,
think it's
Tanner,
between Tanner and Tanner. And not that it's well, if you look at the age difference, I think that could be something where
Oh
like,
yeah,
you
because
know what,
Hudson is like a sneaky. I think he's gonna be 30 this year.
30, 30.
I think he's 29 right now.
But him and Joe we're starting to get that chemistry a little bit on the offensive side of the ball, and he's kind of reliable in some of these games. He's had to play tight end for Joe in meaningful games. So, what does that mean? What does that look like on the tight end side? I think they're good. I think they have plenty of depth. Some guys are rookies, and does that matter? What does that look like? But with Drew Sample and Gesicki, I think that they're set with the 1 and 2.
It's a pretty veteran. It's a pretty veteran room overall when you think of Gesicki, Sample, and Hudson all being in their upper 20s, being in the league a while. Like, yeah, you have All and McLaughlin that are rookies, but I do think it's a pretty veteran room. So if I was like, when you think about who is the 4th guy, does that factor in? Does it factor in? It's like, we've got 2 vets. Do we need the vet? Or should we have more youth? Or does it factor in of like, we have our receiving vet and a blocking vet, and then we have a rookie. Do we want a second receiving guy just in case that Gesicki goes down? I think both those questions to be asked. We'll see. I think that's the most interesting battle, though, because I don't think they keep both. And part of that is because I think John Meta is a shoo-in. I think unless he really stinks, I think John Meta is making the team.
Oh, I agree with you on Meta. But kind of just going back to the tight end, and we'll wrap it up. I don't think that you can hide rookie Tanner on the practice squad.
Do you think you could hide Hudson? I don't this year. I did last year. But he just had a good year in regular season play.
For me personally, I don't think you're going to be able to. One of them's going to get picked off, and they're going to go on another team. More than
that's
likely.
Also an issue. Yeah, where one of these guys is probably gone. So
yeah, it's a good problem. You know what? It's a good problem to have when you think about this tight end room. One thing Joe Burrow is really good at is getting his tight ends paid, except for Irv Smith. But he did put Irv Smith on the Chiefs. So
with John Ross,
we'll see what that looks like. No, but for the Cincinnati Bengals, I think they have a good problem in a lot of areas. When you think about some of the injuries they are facing on the defensive side, I agree with you for Joseph Asai. Put him on the sideline. You don't need to see it. You don't need to see him out there. He's proved enough. You need him. This is a big year for Joseph Asai. It's more than likely his last season in Cincinnati. Everybody knows who his agent is. And he needs to go out there and ball out when he's getting the opportunities. So we'll see what that looks like on that side. But I don't know. Maybe I'm getting my hopes up and it's only preseason and training camp. But it feels like Lou and his unit, they're back. It truly does. The chirping against the Colts.
I remember last year they did have hype in the the joint practice against the Packers, where I remember seeing hype of like, oh, this Packers offense is struggling, but that's a common theme against this Bengals defense. And then they stunk. I was like,
You're right. I'm not gonna get my hopes up. Maybe I'm just happy about Dax Hill and the safety
should be better.
Right now.
Should be better.
We'll see what it looks like. Preseason game number 3. Next time we talk to you, preseason will be over. We'll talk 53-man roster. We'll be counting down the weeks until we get to regular season opener, the Orange out at home versus the New England Patriots. Make sure you follow Mike. He has a really good piece on Chris Jenkins and plenty of work over on All Bengals, Bengals_Sands over on X. You can follow me at Alan Diaz Patterson. Thank you for listening too. It's always game day in Cincinnati.